In the quiet corridors of St. Jude Children's Hospital in Memphis, a 12-year-old girl's room stands out. While other rooms display typical get-well cards and stuffed animals, Lily Patel's walls are covered with Shakespeare quotes and theater playbills. Despite battling aggressive leukemia, she spends her days perfecting her British accent and writing a play about healing, a script that will soon catch the attention of Hollywood legend Morgan Freeman. What begins as a simple celebrity hospital visit transforms into an extraordinary journey when Freeman discovers that this young thespian has something profound to teach him about the true meaning of performance. But time is running short, and Lily's final act might just be her most important one yet. What happens when a legendary actor meets a child who sees beyond his fame to something he had forgotten about himself? Before we dive deeper, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's story will leave you speechless. The pediatric oncology ward of St. Jude Children's Hospital had its own particular rhythm, different from any other place in Memphis. During the day, it pulsed with the beeping of monitors, the squeaking of nurses' shoes on polished floors, and the occasional burst of laughter from children who refused to let illness dim their spirits. But at night, when the fluorescent lights dimmed and the busy halls grew quiet, that's when Lily Patel's world truly came alive. Tonight, like every night for the past 3 months, Lily sat cross-legged on her hospital bed, surrounded by dog-eared copies of Shakespeare plays and theater programs. Her room, unlike the sterile uniformity of others, had transformed into what the nurses affectionately called the Globe Theater Junior. Hand-drawn playbills covered one wall, while strings of battery-operated fairy lights cast a warm glow across, carefully pinned quotes from Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, and A Midsummer Night's Dream. Dr. Amara Bennett paused in the doorway, watching her young patient gesturing dramatically while reading from a worn copy of King Lear. Even with no hair and skin pale from chemotherapy, Lily commanded attention like a veteran stage actress. The IV pole beside her bed had been decorated with ribbons and stage curtain tassels, transforming the medical necessity into a prop worthy of the Royal Shakespeare Company. "As flies to wanton boys are we to the gods, they kill us for their sport," Lily recited, her voice carrying the weight of centuries-old wisdom that seemed impossible for a 12-year-old to grasp. Then she looked up, catching Dr. Bennett's eye. "Too dark for tonight?" Dr. Bennett smiled, entering the room. "Maybe something lighter for evening reading. We don't want to give the night nurses existential crises." Lily reached for another book, her movements careful around the IV lines. "I've been working on my own play instead. Want to hear some?" "In a minute. First, let's check your numbers." Dr. Bennett moved through her evening routine, checking vital signs and medication levels with practiced efficiency. But unlike many doctors who treated their rounds as purely medical exercises, she had learned to incorporate them into Lily's theatrical world. "How's our leading lady feeling tonight?" "The show must go on," Lily replied with a slight smile, though the dark circles under her eyes betrayed her fatigue. "Did you know Morgan Freeman started in theater? Before all the movies, he did Shakespeare too, just like me." Dr. Bennett nodded, having heard variations of this fact many times over the past weeks. Lily's fascination with Morgan Freeman had grown from a simple admiration into something deeper, especially after discovering their shared love of Shakespeare. The girl had somehow gotten hold of every recording of Freeman's early theater performances she could find on YouTube. "I've been practicing my narration voice," Lily continued, switching to a deeper tone that mimicked Freeman's distinctive cadence. "March of the Penguins would have been very different if I'd done it." Dr. Bennett laughed, but her heart squeezed as she noted the latest blood test results on Lily's chart. The numbers weren't trending in the direction they'd hoped. She glanced at the calendar on the wall, another one of Lily's creations, marked not with medical appointments but with theater opening nights and award show dates. Outside the room, Aiden Patel paced the hallway, his laptop open as he tried to balance his daughter's medical bills with his dwindling savings. A software engineer by trade, he'd been working remotely from the hospital for months, splitting his time between conference calls and consultations with doctors. His wife would have known how to handle all this better. She had been the artistic one, the one who first introduced Lily to theater. But cancer had taken her 2 years ago, And now here he was, watching history repeat itself in the cruelest way possible. Nurse Marcus Sullivan approached with his evening medication cart, his large frame moving with the gentle care of someone used to navigating around sleeping children and worried parents. "Mr. Patel, you should get some rest. I'll stay with her for a while." Aiden ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "She's working on her play again. Says she needs to finish it before—" He couldn't complete the sentence. Marcus squeezed his shoulder. The nurse had been at St. Jude for 15 years, and he'd learned that sometimes silence was the best medicine for parents. He'd also learned to recognize the signs of a family nearing their breaking point. The Patels were getting close. Inside the room, Lily was showing Dr. Bennett her latest script revisions. The play, titled The Last Performance, was her most ambitious project yet. It's about a famous actor who forgets why he fell in love with performing in the first place, she explained, her thin fingers tracing the handwritten lines. He thinks it's about being on magazine covers and winning awards, but really it's about connecting with people, making them feel less alone. Dr. Bennett raised an eyebrow. "Sounds pretty sophisticated for your first play." "Well, I have had a lot of time to think about it," Lily said, gesturing around her room. "Besides, the best stories are about transformation, right? Like in A Winter's Tale when the statue comes to life at the end, or in Beauty and the Beast." "Speaking of transformation," Marcus said, entering with her evening medications, "these magic pills aren't going to take themselves." Lily made a face, but dutifully took the pills, washing them down with water from her theater-themed water bottle. Another attempt to bring art into every aspect of her medical routine. "They're not very magical if they make you feel worse before you feel better. All great performances require rehearsal," Marcus replied, playing along with her theatrical metaphors. It was a language all the staff had learned to speak, finding that medical procedures went more smoothly when framed as stage directions rather than clinical requirements. As the evening progressed, the hospital settled into its night routine. Parents dozed in uncomfortable chairs, nurses made their rounds, and monitors kept their steady vigil. But in room 312, Lily continued writing, her pen moving across the page with urgent purpose. She had learned early in her treatment that the night hours were different. Pain felt sharper, fear loomed larger, but creativity also flowed more freely. Grace Nakamura, the night shift child life specialist, found her still awake at midnight. "You should be sleeping, star of the show." "Can't sleep," Lily replied, not looking up from her writing. "The ending isn't right yet, and I need it to be perfect before—" Grace sat on the edge of the bed, gently taking the notebook from Lily's hands. "Before what?" Lily met her eyes, and for a moment the theatrical facade dropped. "Before I run out of time. The doctors think I can't hear them talking to Dad, but I can. I know what the numbers mean." Grace felt her throat tighten. In her years of working with sick children, she'd learned that they often understood far more than adults gave them credit for. "What does the ending need?" "It needs to matter," Lily said, her voice small but determined. "When people read it, I want them to understand something they didn't before, like how Shakespeare makes you see the world differently." "Is that why Morgan Freeman is so important to you? Because he understands that kind of impact?" Lily nodded, reaching for a tablet where she'd bookmarked interviews with the actor. "He says that every role is about finding the truth in it, and I need him to see the truth in my play. I think maybe he's lost sight of his own truth somewhere along the way. All those big movies, all those awards. But when was the last time he did theater? When was the last time he connected with an audience the way he used to?" Grace was struck, not for the first time, by the wisdom that sometimes emerged from children facing their own mortality. They saw things that others missed, understood truths that adults had forgotten in their rush through life. The conversation was interrupted by a commotion in the hallway. The night shift was changing, and with it came news that would set in motion events none of them could have anticipated. Morgan Freeman was coming to Memphis for a film festival screening. More importantly, he was scheduled to visit St. Jude as part of the festival's charity initiative. Lily's eyes lit up with an intensity that had nothing to do with her fever. "When?" "Next week," Grace said, already seeing the wheels turning in Lily's mind. But honey, these celebrity visits are usually very structured. They see lots of kids, take photos. That's enough time, Lily interrupted, pulling her notebook back. I can finish it by then. I have to. She flipped through her pages with renewed energy, despite the late hour and her obvious exhaustion. Grace wanted to insist she rest, but something in Lily's determination stopped her. Sometimes she knew the will to complete something meaningful was stronger medicine than anything they could administer through an IV. As she left the room, Grace paused to look back at Lily, silhouetted against the soft glow of her fairy lights, writing with the focus of someone who knew exactly how precious time was. In that moment, she couldn't help but wonder if this visit from Morgan Freeman might turn out to be more than just another celebrity photo opportunity. What no one knew yet was that Freeman himself was arriving in Memphis with his own set of questions about legacy, meaning, and the true purpose of performance. After 60 years in the entertainment industry, he'd begun to feel disconnected from the pure joy of acting that had first drawn him to the craft. The upcoming film festival was just another obligation in an endless series of appearances and accolades that had started to feel hollow. He couldn't have known that in a hospital room decorated with Shakespeare quotes and fairy lights, a 12-year-old playwright was about to remind him of everything he'd forgotten about the power of performance, and she was running out of time to do it. In his hotel room across town, Morgan Freeman stood at the window, looking out over the Memphis skyline. His assistant, Sarah, was reviewing his schedule for the upcoming film festival. After the morning screening, you have the St. Jude visit at 2, she said, scrolling through her tablet. Standard protocol, an hour, maybe hour and a half. Photos with the kids, some brief interactions. Then we head to the evening reception. Freeman nodded absently, his mind elsewhere. Earlier that day, he'd received a package from his old theater director in New York, a recording of his performance as Othello from 1987. Have you ever felt like you've lost touch with something essential? He asked suddenly. Sarah looked up, surprised by the personal nature of the question. In 15 years as his assistant, Freeman rarely shared such thoughts. Sir? I was watching some old footage today, he continued, still gazing out the window. Theater work from before all this. He gestured vaguely at the festival promotional materials scattered across the hotel room. There was something different about it, something real. You were younger then, Sarah offered. No, it's not that. Freeman turned from the window, picking up the theater program that had accompanied the recording. It was like I was speaking, directly to each person in the audience. No cameras, no special effects, no second takes, just pure storytelling. The program's pages were yellowed with age, but the words still jumped out clearly. Morgan Freeman stars in a groundbreaking interpretation of Othello, bringing Shakespeare's tragedy to life with unprecedented intimacy. Maybe that's why I've been dreading these appearances lately, he mused. Everything feels scripted, manufactured, even these hospital visits. They mean well, but it's also choreographed. Quick photos, practice smiles, everyone playing. They're assigned roles. Sarah set down her tablet, recognizing that this was more than just pre-event fatigue. In recent months, she'd noticed a growing restlessness in Freeman, a subtle disconnection from the very industry that had made him a legend. What if we did something different at St. Jude, she suggested. Less structured, more genuine interactions? Freeman's expression brightened slightly. What did you have in mind? Well, I've been reading about some of the children we'll meet, Sarah said, pulling up her notes. There's one in particular, a girl named Lily Patel. She's apparently quite the Shakespeare enthusiast. For the first time that evening, Freeman showed real interest. Shakespeare? How old is she? 12. She's been writing her own play while undergoing treatment. The hospital staff mentioned she's particularly inspired by your early theater work. Freeman sat down, reaching again for the Othello program. A 12-year-old Shakespeare fan writing plays in a hospital room, he mused. Now that's something you don't hear every day. Should I arrange for more time with her specifically? Freeman nodded slowly, an idea forming. Yes, but don't tell her. And Sarah? Bring me everything you can find about this young playwright. I want to know her story." As Sarah made the necessary calls, Freeman opened his laptop and began searching for his old theater interviews. Something about this situation felt important, like the universe was orchestrating a meeting that needed to happen. Back at St. Jude, Lily had finally fallen asleep, her notebook still clutched in her hands. Aiden gently removed it, careful not to wake her, and began reading the latest pages of her play. The main character was a famous actor who had lost his way, forgetting the magic of live performance in pursuit of Hollywood success. But through an unexpected encounter with a young theater enthusiast, he rediscovers what made him fall in love with acting in the first place. Aiden felt tears welling up as he read. The dialogue was raw, honest, filled with observations that seemed impossible for a 12-year-old to make. Yet here they were in his daughter's careful handwriting, insights about life and art that many adults never grasp. Dr. Bennett found him there an hour later, still reading. "She's quite talented," she said softly. "She gets it from her mother," Aiden replied, wiping his eyes. "Priya would have known how to nurture this gift better than I do. All I understand is computers and coding." "You're doing more than you know," Dr. Bennett assured him. "You've given her the freedom to create, to dream, even here." She gestured at the transformed hospital room. "Some parents would have insisted on more practical pursuits." "Practical seems less important now," Aiden admitted. "I just want her to have the chance to finish her story." Dr. Bennett checked Lily's vitals one last time before leaving. The numbers weren't good, but she'd learned that medical statistics didn't always tell the whole story. Sometimes the will to complete something meaningful could keep a patient, going beyond all medical expectations. As the night deepened, the hospital's rhythm slowed to a gentle pulse. In room 312, Lily dreamed of stages and spotlights, of Shakespeare's words and Morgan Freeman's voice. In her dream, she was strong again, standing before an audience, telling a story that needed to be told. And across town, Morgan Freeman lay awake, reading through his old theater reviews and thinking about a young girl he hadn't met yet, but who somehow seemed destined to remind him of something he'd forgotten along the way to becoming a legend. Neither of them knew it yet, but their upcoming meeting would change both their lives in ways that neither the doctors nor the Hollywood publicists could have predicted. Sometimes the most powerful performances happen off-script, when authentic souls connect and truth finds its voice in unexpected places. The morning of Morgan Freeman's scheduled visit dawned with the kind of sticky Memphis heat that made the air feel thick as molasses. At St. Jude, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Staff members straightened their badges, children practiced their hellos, and hospital administrators hovered nervously near the entrance. Lily, however, was having one of her bad days. The aggressive round of chemotherapy from the previous evening had left her nauseated and weak. Dr. Bennett had already visited twice, concerned about her fever. "Maybe we should postpone your meeting," Aiden suggested, watching his daughter struggle to sit up. "No." Lily's voice was fierce despite her pallor. "I have to give him my play today. It has to be today." She clutched her notebook, now filled with carefully revised pages and post-it note annotations. Nurse Marcus arrived with anti-nausea medication. "The star needs her strength for her big scene," he said, injecting the medicine into her IV line. "Though I still think you should let me be your opening act. My juggling routine is getting pretty good." Lily managed a small smile. "Next time, Marcus. Today's performance requires a different kind of magic." Down in the hospital lobby, Sarah was doing her best to manage the growing chaos. Local media had gotten wind of Freeman's visit, and despite her best efforts to keep things low-key, a small crowd of reporters had gathered outside. "Remember," she briefed the hospital staff, "Mr. Freeman wants this to be about the children, not publicity. No external media inside, minimal photos, and he's requested extra time with certain patients." Emily Martinez, the hospital's events coordinator, nodded enthusiastically. "We've arranged everything according to your specifications, though I should mention, there's been a slight change regarding Lily Patel." Sarah's attention sharpened. Freeman had spent the previous evening reading about Lily and watching videos of his own early Shakespeare performances. He'd seemed particularly invested in meeting this young playwright. What kind of change? She's not doing well this morning, Emily explained. The doctors are monitoring her condition. They're hopeful she'll be strong enough for a brief visit, but… Sarah checked her watch. Freeman would arrive in 30 minutes. Keep me updated. This meeting is important to him. Meanwhile, Freeman's car was winding through Memphis traffic. He sat in the back seat reviewing the wrinkled pages of his old Othello script. Last night he'd dreamed of performing at the public theater, of the electric connection between actor and audience, of the pure joy of living inside Shakespeare's words. Sarah sent over Lily's medical file. His manager, Robert, said from the front seat, "It's not good. Doctors gave her weeks, maybe months. Are you sure you want to get involved? These situations can be emotionally complicated." Freeman looked up from his script. Sometimes complicated is exactly what we need. Back in room 312, Lily was gathering her strength. Grace, the child life specialist, had helped her change into a special outfit, a purple dress her mother had bought her for her last theater performance, now hanging loose on her thin frame. They'd wrapped a colorful scarf around her head, and Lily had insisted on practicing her sitting-up posture. "Remember," Grace said, adjusting the scarf, "he's just a person, a very talented person, but still human." Lily shook her head. "He's more than that. He's proof that Shakespeare still matters, that old stories can speak to new audiences. Did you know he performed Coriolanus in 1979? The critics said he redefined the role. I found the reviews online." Grace marveled at the girl's encyclopedic knowledge of Freeman's theater career, details that even the actor himself might have forgotten. When Freeman finally arrived at St. Jude, the entire hospital seemed to hold its breath. He moved through the corridors with a quiet dignity, taking time with each child, never rushing, never making them feel like just another photo opportunity. But as they approached room 312, Sarah noticed a change in his demeanor. The practiced ease gave way to something more focused, more present. Dr. Bennett met them outside Lily's room. "She's been fighting to stay alert all morning," she warned. "This means everything to her." Freeman nodded, understanding. Then he straightened his shoulders and did something that surprised everyone. He removed his suit jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and pulled a worn copy of King Lear from his bag. "I hear she's a fan of the classics," he said simply. When he entered the room, Lily was sitting up in bed, her notebook clutched to her chest. For a moment, they just looked at each other. The legendary actor and the young playwright, separated by decades of experience but connected by their love of theater. "I believe," Freeman said in that distinctive voice, "that you and I share a passion for the bard." Lily's eyes widened. "You brought King Lear." "I thought we might read a scene together." He pulled up a chair beside her bed. "Unless you'd prefer something from your own play?" The shock on Lily's face was palpable. "You know about my play? I know you're writing something important." He gestured to her notebook. "And I know something about the importance of stories." What happened next would be talked about in the hospital for years to come. For nearly 2 hours, Morgan Freeman sat with Lily Patel, their heads bent over her notebook as she shared her story. The play, as it turned out, was about more than just an actor rediscovering his passion. It was about the transformative power of authentic connection, about how art could bridge the gap between strangers and make them essential to each other's stories. "You've written truth here," Freeman said after reading a particularly powerful scene. "That's harder than writing dialogue or action. Truth is what makes theater magic." Lily looked up at him, her eyes bright with fever, but also with purpose. "When did you last feel that magic? Really feel it, I mean?" The question caught him off guard. In all the interviews he'd done, all the press junkets and talk shows, no one had asked him that. "It's been a while," he admitted. "That's what my play is about," Lily said. "About remembering, about coming back to what matters." She hesitated, then added, Would you read the ending with me? Out loud? Like a real performance?" Freeman looked at the final pages, then at the girl who had written them. In her eyes he saw something he recognized, the pure love of storytelling that had first drawn him to the stage decades ago. I would be honored. What followed was an impromptu performance, unlike anything the hospital had ever seen. Freeman and Lily reading together brought her words to life. The story of an aging actor and a young dreamer, each helping the other remember the power of authentic performance. Outside the room, a small crowd had gathered, nurses, doctors, other patients, and their families, all drawn by the sound of Freeman's resonant voice intertwining with Lily's clear, determined one. When they finished the final scene, there was a moment of profound silence. Then Freeman did something unexpected. He wiped tears from his eyes. "You've written something extraordinary here," he said. "Something true." Lily's hands trembled as she closed the notebook. "I needed to finish it," she said softly. Before what? Before I couldn't anymore." Freeman looked at her, really looked at her, seeing beyond the hospital bed and medical equipment to the artist within. "What if this isn't the ending? What do you mean? What if we gave your play a real performance, not just here in this room, but on a real stage, with real actors, a real audience?" Lily's breath caught. "But how?" "Leave that to me." Freeman stood, a plan already forming. "Your words deserve to be heard by more people. They deserve a proper stage." Dr. Bennett, who had been quietly monitoring Lily's vitals throughout the visit, stepped forward. "Mr. Freeman, I should mention—" "I know," he said quietly, understanding the unspoken concern about Lily's condition. "But sometimes the best medicine isn't the kind you can prescribe." He turned back to Lily. "Will you trust me with your story? Will you let me help you share it with the world?" The hope that blazed in Lily's eyes was brighter than any stage light. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, please." As Freeman left the hospital that day, he carried Lily's notebook with him. Not just the physical pages, but the weight of her trust, her dreams, and the urgent timeline they were working against. Sarah was already on her phone, canceling appointments and rearranging schedules. She knew that look in Freeman's eyes, the one that meant everything else would have to wait. "Get me the number for the Memphis Theater Company," he said as they reached the car. "And call Robert. Tell him we're going to need the studio space, sooner than we thought." "What exactly are we doing?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "We're putting on a show," Freeman said, holding Lily's notebook like it was a precious artifact. "A last performance that will be a first performance, and we're going to do it before time runs out." As their car pulled away from St. Jude, neither Freeman nor Sarah could have predicted how this decision would ripple out, touching lives far beyond the hospital walls, and reminding everyone involved about the true power of storytelling. Back in her hospital room, Lily was experiencing a different kind of fever, one born of excitement and possibility. Despite her physical exhaustion, her mind raced with ideas. Dr. Bennett had insisted she rest, but rest seemed impossible now. "He's going to produce my play," she kept saying to anyone who would listen. "Morgan Freeman is going to bring my words to life." Aiden watched his daughter's transformation with a mixture of joy and concern. He hadn't seen her this animated in weeks, but he also noticed how the excitement drained what little energy she had. "Maybe we should talk about pacing yourself," he suggested gently. "This is wonderful news, but your health comes first." Lily turned to him with an intensity that made his heart ache. "Dad, don't you see? This is my health. This is what I'm fighting for." Meanwhile, Freeman had assembled an impromptu production meeting in his hotel suite. Sarah had managed to gather representatives from the Memphis Theater Company, including their artistic director, Thomas Richardson, and their lead casting director, Maria Alvarez. "We need to move quickly," Freeman explained, spreading Lily's pages across the conference table. "This isn't just another production, it's a race against time." Maria leafed through the script, her eyebrows rising. "This is remarkable. The dialogue, the character development, and you say a 12-year-old wrote this?" "Sometimes the youngest voices speak the deepest truths," Freeman replied. "The question is, can we mount this production in 3 weeks?" Thomas nearly choked on his coffee. 3 weeks? That's impossible. We need time for casting, rehearsals, set design. Then we'll do the impossible, Freeman cut in. Because that's all the time we might have. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Everyone present understood what wasn't being said, that this production's timeline was dictated by more than just theatrical constraints. I'll call in every favor I have, Maria said finally. We can start auditions tomorrow. And I know a set designer who owes me, Thomas added. She can work miracles with minimal prep time. Sarah, ever practical, was already creating lists on her tablet. We'll need to secure rights, arrange permissions. I'll handle that, Freeman said. And I want to play the lead role. This announcement caused another stir in the room. Morgan Freeman, Oscar winner and Hollywood icon, wanting to perform in a hospital patient's play at a regional theater. The AT press will go crazy, Sarah warned. Then let them. This story deserves to be heard, and if my name helps that happen, so be it. As the meeting continued late into the night, plans took shape. The Memphis Theater Company's main stage would be secured. Rehearsals would begin immediately. Every resource would be directed toward bringing Lily's vision to life. Back at St. Jude, news of the production had spread through the hospital like wildfire. Other patients began asking to read Lily's play. Nurses traded favorite lines during shift changes. Even Dr. Bennett found herself quoting passages during rounds. Nurse Marcus had taken it upon himself to become Lily's unofficial production assistant, helping her organize her notes and keeping track of her medical treatments around the newly proposed rehearsal schedule. We'll set up video links so you can watch the auditions, he explained, wheeling in a larger monitor for her room, and Mr. Freeman wants to consult with you on casting decisions. Lily's eyes shone with a light that seemed to push back the shadows under them. I never thought, when I was writing it, I never imagined. That's the thing about dreams, Marcus said, adjusting her IV. They have a way of exceeding our imagination. That night, as the hospital settled into its quiet hours, Lily couldn't sleep. She sat up writing new notes in a fresh notebook, adding details and suggestions for the production. Her father had finally succumbed to exhaustion in the bedside chair, but she kept working. Grace found her there during her midnight rounds. You should be resting, playwright. I'll rest when it's finished, Lily said, not looking up from her writing. Really finished, On stage with lights and costumes and... She paused, overcome by a sudden wave of dizziness. Grace quickly helped her lie back against the pillows. The best artists know when to take breaks, Grace reminded her gently. The play will still be there in the morning. But will I? Lily whispered, giving voice to the fear that haunted everyone involved in the production. Grace took her hand, squeezing it firmly. You listen to me, Lily Patel. You've already done something extraordinary. You've touched Morgan Freeman's heart with your words. That's no small feat. Now you need to trust him to help bring your vision to life. But he needs you strong for that to happen. Lily nodded slowly, allowing Grace to adjust her oxygen levels and medication. Will you read me the audition scene? The one they're using tomorrow? I want to hear how it sounds out loud one more time. Grace picked up the marked pages and began to read. The scene was between the aging actor and a young fan who helps him rediscover his love of performance. As she read, she couldn't help but notice how the dialogue seemed to echo Lily's own journey with Freeman. Across town, Freeman sat in his hotel room, reading the same scene. He'd performed countless roles in his career, won every major award, but something about this part felt different, more personal, more urgent. He picked up his phone and dialed Sarah's number. We need to set up a direct video link to Lily's room for rehearsals, he said when she answered. She needs to be part of this every step of the way. Already arranged, Sarah replied. The hospital's IT team is installing everything tomorrow morning. And the theater company? They're really on board with the timeline? They're moving heaven and earth to make it happen. Thomas has already started calling in his cast options. Maria's working on costumes. It's going to be tight, but it has to work, Freeman interrupted. This isn't just another production, Sarah. This is about giving a young girl's voice the audience it deserves, about making sure her story gets told. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. After hanging up, Freeman returned to the script. He read through it again, marveling at how someone so young could write with such insight about the way people lose touch with their authentic selves, about the masks we wear and the truths we forget. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Auditions, rehearsals, the 1,000 details that go into mounting a theatrical production. But tonight, in the quiet hours, Morgan Freeman sat with the words of a 12-year-old playwright and remembered why he'd fallen in love with acting in the first place. The first week of rehearsals transformed both the Memphis Theater Company and St. Jude Children's Hospital into buzzing hives of activity. Freeman had insisted on holding initial read-throughs in Lily's hospital room, much to the astonishment of the hospital staff and the cast members who found themselves performing between medical equipment and IV stands. Places, everyone, Freeman would say with a twinkle in his eye as nurses worked around the assembled actors. He'd taken to calling Lily Director Patel, much to her delight. The cast included some of Memphis's finest theater veterans, all of whom had dropped everything to be part of this unique production. Jessica Martinez, a celebrated local actress, had been cast as the conscience of the story, a theater usher who appears throughout the play as a kind of ghostly guide. Richard Chen, fresh from Broadway, took the role of the younger version of Freeman's character, appearing in flashback scenes. Today's rehearsal was particularly important. They were working on the pivotal scene where the aging actor confronts his younger self. Lily sat up in her bed, script notes spread across her lap, while Freeman and Chen circled each other in the small space. "You've forgotten what it feels like." Chen delivered his line with quiet intensity. "The moment before the curtain rises, when anything is possible." Freeman's response was heavy with regret. "I remember everything. I just can't feel it anymore." "Cut!" Lily's voice was weak but decisive. "Mr. Freeman, can you try that last line again? Remember, this is the moment he realizes what he's lost. It's not just about feeling. It's about fear." Freeman paused, considering. "Fear of what, Director Patel?" "Fear of remembering," Lily explained, her eyes bright with fever but clear with purpose. "Because if he remembers how it felt, really remembers, then he has to face how far he strayed from that feeling." The room fell silent. Freeman exchanged glances with Sarah, who stood in the corner taking notes. They'd all noticed how Lily's insights into the character seemed to cut straight to the heart of truth. They ran the scene again, this time with Freeman infusing his line with that underlying fear. The difference was palpable. The whole room could feel it. But halfway through the third run-through, Lily's monitoring machines began beeping urgently. Dr. Bennett rushed in, quickly assessing the situation. "That's enough for today," she announced, already adjusting medication levels. "Our director needs rest." Freeman watched as the medical team worked around Lily, his face etched with concern. Outside in the hallway, he pulled Dr. Bennett aside. "Give it to me straight. How much time?" The doctor hesitated. "Her numbers are declining faster than we'd hoped. The excitement of the production is giving her energy, but it's also taxing her system." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying we might need to move up the timeline. 3 weeks might be optimistic." Freeman's jaw tightened. He pulled out his phone and dialed Thomas Richardson, the theater's artistic director. "Thomas? We need to talk about accelerating everything." "Yes, I know it's already tight, but..." He glanced back at Lily's room. "Some things can't wait." Meanwhile, Aiden Patel was struggling with his own concerns. He'd been watching his daughter pour every ounce of energy into this production, staying awake late into the night making notes, pushing through pain to participate in rehearsals. "Maybe we should scale back," he suggested to Grace during one of Lily's brief naps. The video links would let her direct from bed, give her more rest. Grace shook her head. "This play is keeping her going, Aiden. I've seen it before. Sometimes when patients find their purpose, their reason to fight, it can make all the difference." The production itself was taking shape at a breakneck pace. The Memphis Theater Company's scene shop worked around the clock, building sets based on Lily's detailed descriptions. The marketing team had begun promoting the show, and tickets sold out within hours of the announcement that Morgan Freeman would be starring. But it wasn't just the professional theater world that had been caught up in the project. St. Jude itself had become part of the creative process. Other young patients contributed artwork for the show's poster. The hospital's maintenance staff helped build smaller set pieces that could be brought to Lily's room for blocking rehearsals. Even the cafeteria workers began naming menu items after characters from the play. Sarah had her hands full managing both the theatrical and medical aspects of the production. She'd arranged for a direct video feed from the main theater to Lily's room, allowing her to watch technical rehearsals when she wasn't strong enough for visitors. The lighting designer wants to know about the memory sequence, Sarah reported during one such session. She's thinking of using gobos to create shadow patterns. No, Lily interrupted, sketching quickly in her notebook. The memories should be clean light, pure and simple. It's the present that should be complicated and shadowed. Freeman, who had been quietly observing, smiled. Out of the mouths of babes, he murmured to Sarah. She understands theatrical metaphor better than most professionals I've worked with. But as the production progressed, new challenges arose. The local media had gotten wind of the story's deeper significance, that this wasn't just about Morgan Freeman performing in a local theater production, but about a race against time to bring a dying girl's vision to life. We're getting interview requests from every major network, Sarah reported. They want to talk to Lily, get the human interest angle. No, Freeman said firmly. This isn't about publicity. It's about the work, about giving her story the presentation it deserves. However, keeping the media at bay proved difficult. Reporters began camping outside the hospital, trying to snap photos through windows. The theater company's rehearsals were interrupted by paparazzi attempting to get shots of Freeman working with the cast. The pressure began to take its toll on everyone involved. The cast was working double shifts to meet the accelerated schedule. The technical crew pulled all-nighters to complete the set construction. And Lily, despite her determination, was growing weaker. During one particularly difficult rehearsal, when the pain was making it hard for her to focus, Freeman sat beside her bed and took her hand. Tell me something, Director Patel. What made you write this story? Lily was quiet for a moment, gathering her strength. I wanted to write about how people forget what matters, how they get lost in success and forget why they started doing what they love in the first place. She looked at him directly. Like you did. Freeman felt the truth of her words like a physical impact. You're right, he admitted. Somewhere, along the way between the Oscar and the Lifetime Achievement Awards, I forgot the simple joy of telling stories that matter. That's why this has to work, Lily said, her grip tightening on his hand. Not just for me, but for everyone who's forgotten. We're reminding them. The next day, Freeman called an all-hands meeting of the cast and crew. They gathered in the theater while Lily watched via video link from her hospital room. I know we're all feeling the pressure, he began. The timeline, the media attention, the technical challenges. But I need you all to remember something. We're not just putting on a play. We're making a young girl's dream come true, yes. But we're also part of something bigger. We're telling a story about remembering what matters, about finding our way back to authentic truth in an artificial world. He paused, making eye contact with each person in the room and then turning to face the camera, connecting them to Lily. So yes, we're going to work harder than we've ever worked. We're going to push through exhaustion and doubt. We're going to create something extraordinary in an impossible time frame. Not because we have to, but because this story deserves nothing less. The speech galvanized the company. Rehearsals took on a new intensity. The technical elements began falling into place. Even the hospital staff found ways to adjust Lily's treatment schedule to maximize her involvement in the creative process. But time remained their greatest enemy. Each day, Dr. Bennett's reports grew more concerned. Each day, Lily fought harder to stay present and engaged. And each day, Freeman and the company raced to bring her vision to life before it was too late. With just 10 days until opening night, the production faced its first major crisis. Lily's condition had deteriorated significantly, requiring her to be moved to intensive care for 48 hours. The rehearsal schedule, already compressed beyond reason, threatened to unravel completely. Freeman paced the ICU waiting room, script in hand, while Dr. Bennett explained the situation. Her body is fighting hard, but the cancer is aggressive. We've adjusted her treatment protocol, but she hesitated, choosing her words carefully. Mr. Freeman, I need you to understand. There's a real possibility she won't make it to opening night. The words hit him like a physical blow. Then we move up the opening. We perform it sooner. It's not that simple, Sarah interjected, looking up from her tablet. The set isn't finished, the lighting cues aren't programmed, and half the cast is still on book for Act 2. Freeman turned to her with an intensity that made her step back. Then we work harder. We work through the night. We do whatever it takes. Inside the ICU, Aiden sat beside his daughter's bed, holding her thin hand while machines beeped steadily around them. Lily drifted in and out of consciousness, but whenever she was awake, she asked about the play. Did they figure out the transition? For scene 4? She whispered through cracked lips. The one with the memory sequence? Shh, Aiden soothed, fighting back tears. Don't worry about that now. Just rest. But Lily persisted. Dad, promise me something. Promise me that even if that the play will still happen, that they'll still tell the story. Aiden felt his heart breaking. It's your story, sweetheart. It doesn't work without you. No, Lily said with surprising strength. It's everyone's story. About remembering what matters before it's too late. Promise me. Before Aiden could respond, Nurse Marcus entered with the evening medication round. He'd taken to humming show tunes while working, a small gesture that made the ICU feel less sterile. Your cast is causing quite a stir downstairs, he reported as he checked Lily's IV lines. They've set up a temporary rehearsal space in the pediatric recreation room. Mr. Freeman says if you can't come to rehearsal, rehearsal will come to you. A weak smile crossed Lily's face. Really? Really? They're working on the father-daughter scene right now. Want me to sneak you down for a peek? Dr. Bennett, who had entered quietly during this exchange, surprised them all by saying, Actually, a short visit might be good for her. 30 minutes, no more. The journey to the recreation room was like a carefully choreographed medical ballet. Marcus and another nurse managed Lily's portable monitoring equipment while Dr. Bennett supervised every step. When they arrived, they found the space transformed. The recreation room's usual toys and games had been pushed to the walls. Chairs were arranged in a rough approximation of the theater's layout, and Freeman was working with Richard Chen on an emotionally charged scene. When Lily entered in her wheelchair, the entire cast and crew fell silent. She looked so small, so fragile among the medical equipment, yet her eyes still burned with creative fire. Why did everyone stop? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We only have 30 minutes, let's make them count. Freeman smiled, recognizing the director's spirit even in this weakened state. You heard the boss, places everyone. For the next half hour, Lily watched as the scene came to life. Despite her condition, she offered suggestions about timing, emotion, and meaning. When Chen struggled with a particularly difficult monologue, she had them pause. Remember, she said, he's not just talking about acting. He's talking about living, about how we perform roles in life until we forget who we really are. The room grew still as her words sank in. Freeman exchanged glances with Chen, both actors, suddenly understanding the scene in a new way. They ran it again, this time with a deeper understanding of the subtext. The difference was transformative. That's it, Lily whispered, tears in her eyes. That's the truth of it. But the emotional breakthrough was interrupted by warning beeps from her monitors. Dr. Bennett immediately moved to check her vitals. That's enough for today, she announced, already preparing for the return journey to ICU. As they wheeled her out, Lily grabbed Freeman's hand. Promise me, she said, echoing her earlier words to her father. Promise me you'll finish it, even if I can't. Freeman knelt beside her wheelchair, his voice thick with emotion. I promise you this, Director Patel. Your story will be told. and it will be told with all the truth and beauty you've written into it. After Lily returned to ICU, the company remained in the recreation room, shaken by what they'd witnessed but more determined than ever. "All right," Freeman addressed the group. "New schedule. We rehearse in shifts, 24 hours a day. Anyone who needs to drop out, no judgment. This just became more than a play." Not a single person left. Upstairs in the ICU, Dr. Bennett was having a serious conversation with Aiden. "We need to discuss quality of life decisions," she began gently. "The more energy she expends on the play is her quality of life," Aiden interrupted. "You saw her down there. That's my daughter, really her, not just the shell this disease has left behind." Dr. Bennett nodded slowly. "Then we'll work with that. But you need to be prepared. The next few days will be critical." Meanwhile, Sarah had transformed the hospital's conference room into a production office. The walls were covered with schedules, set designs, and medical updates. She coordinated with the theater's technical team via video link, trying to solve seemingly impossible logistical challenges. "If we move the dress rehearsal to midnight," she suggested to Thomas Richardson, the artistic director, "we can do a full technical run while Lily's sleeping, then show her the video in the morning for notes." "The crew's already exhausted," Thomas warned. "We're all exhausted," Sarah replied. "But did you see her face today? When she watched that scene come together? That's what we're fighting for." The news about Lily's condition spread through the theater community like wildfire. Other local companies began offering help, lending equipment, sending experienced stagehands, even providing understudies so the main cast could rehearse longer hours. The media attention intensified as well, but in a different way. Instead of seeking sensational headlines, reporters began telling the story of how an entire artistic community had rallied around one girl's vision. Grace, during her night shift, found Freeman still in the recreation room at 3 a.m., working through his lines. "You should rest," she advised. "You're no good to her if you collapse." Freeman looked up from his script. "You know what she wrote in the play's notes?" The actor must remember that every performance might be someone's first time seeing theater, or their last time. Every moment matters. Grace sat down beside him. "She's wise beyond her years." "She's wise beyond any of our years," Freeman corrected. "This play, it's not just about an actor remembering why he loves theater. It's about all of us remembering why we do what we do, why we love what we love, before time runs out." The next morning brought both progress and setbacks. The set construction was finally completed, ahead of schedule thanks to the volunteer crews working through the night. But Lily's fever had spiked again, requiring another round of aggressive treatment. During her brief periods of consciousness, she insisted on hearing updates about the production. The cast took turns visiting her, running lines by her bedside, showing her costume sketches and describing technical elements. "The lighting designer figured out that transition you wanted," Jessica Martinez told her during one such visit. "The one where memory becomes reality. It's beautiful. Wait till you see it." Lily smiled weakly. "Tell me," she whispered. "Tell me exactly how it looks." Jessica described the effect in detail, how the lights would shift from stark present-day reality to a warm golden memory state, how shadows would play across the actors' faces, how the audience would feel the change in their bones. As she listened, Lily scribbled notes in her ever-present notebook, her handwriting growing shakier, but her artistic vision remaining clear as ever. Outside in the hallway, Freeman was deep in conversation with Dr. Bennett and the hospital's ethics committee. They were discussing an unprecedented proposal. "You want to do what?" Dr. Harrison, the committee head, asked incredulously. "We want to perform the first act in the ICU," Freeman repeated. "A private showing just for Lily. Full costumes, minimal set pieces, but the full emotional impact." "It's completely against protocol," Dr. Harrison protested. "The ICU is a sterile environment, and it might be her only chance to see any of this come to life," Dr. Bennett interjected softly. "We all know the statistics she's fighting, but The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken understanding. Sarah, ever practical, was already problem-solving. We could create a controlled environment. Limited cast, essential personnel only. All properly sterilized, of course. Dr. Bennett nodded slowly. From a medical standpoint, if we time it between her treatments, monitor her vitals carefully. The psychological benefit could outweigh the risks, Grace added, joining the conversation. I've seen what this play means to her. It's literally keeping her going. After hours of debate and planning, the committee finally agreed, with strict conditions. The performance would be limited to 30 minutes. Only 5 cast members would be allowed in. Everything would have to be sterilized, and Dr. Bennett would have full authority to stop the performance at any sign of distress. The news energized the entire production team. The costume department worked overtime to prepare sterilizable versions of key costumes. The sound designer created a portable system that could create the necessary atmospheric effects within ICU constraints. Even the lighting designer found ways to work with the room's existing fixtures to create something magical. Meanwhile, Lily's condition continued to fluctuate. Good hours were followed by bad ones, moments of clarity interrupted by periods of confusion. But whenever she was lucid, her focus remained sharp, her artistic vision unchanged. During one particularly difficult night, she asked to speak to Freeman alone. "There's something I need you to understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "About the ending." Freeman leaned close to hear her. "What about it? People might think it's sad that the actor never performs again, but it's not sad. He found something more important than performing. He found his truth again." Freeman felt tears threatening. "Like you've helped me find mine?" Lily smiled weakly. "You never lost it. You just forgot where to look." The next day, as final preparations for the ICU performance were underway, an unexpected visitor arrived at the hospital. James Earl Jones, having heard about the production from industry contacts, had flown in from New York. "I couldn't stay away," he told Freeman. "When I heard about this brave young playwright and her story, some things are more important than schedules." The presence of another legendary actor gave everyone a boost of energy. Jones asked to read the script and spent hours with it in the hospital cafeteria, occasionally wiping tears from his eyes. "This is extraordinary," he told Freeman later. "The wisdom in these pages, it's like she's lived 1,000 lives." "She might have," Freeman replied. "We just don't know it yet." The day of the ICU performance arrived with both anticipation and anxiety. The medical team had adjusted Lily's treatment schedule to ensure she would be as strong as possible. The chosen cast members went through an intensive sterilization process, their costumes carefully prepared according to hospital protocols. Aiden sat beside his daughter's bed, holding her hand as the small audience gathered, doctors, nurses, and James Earl Jones, all wearing protective gear. "Are you ready, sweetheart?" he asked. Lily nodded, her eyes bright with excitement despite her pallor. "I've been ready my whole life." As the makeshift stage area was prepared, Freeman took his position. He looked at this extraordinary girl who had reminded him of everything. He'd forgotten about the power of theater, about the importance of telling stories that matter. "House lights down," Lily whispered, playing her part as director one more time. "Places everyone. Let's tell our story." The performance was about to begin, and with it, a moment of truth that would change everyone involved in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The ICU performance began with a hush that felt almost sacred. Freeman, dressed in a simplified version of his costume, took his position in the makeshift performance space. The regular beeping of Lily's monitors provided an unexpected rhythm to the opening monologue. But halfway through the first scene, something unexpected happened. Lily, who had been watching with rapt attention, suddenly spoke up. "Stop," she said, her voice stronger than it had been in days. "Something's wrong." Everyone froze. Dr. Bennett moved quickly to check her vitals, but Lily waved her away. "Not with me," she explained. "With the story. We're telling it wrong." Freeman stepped out of character, moving closer to her bed. "What do you mean, Director Patel?" "We're making it too much about loss," she said, struggling to sit up straighter. but it's really about discovery. We need to change the opening, all of it. I know how it needs to be now. To everyone's amazement, Lily began dictating new scenes, her words flowing with an urgency that seemed to transcend her physical condition. Sarah scrambled to type everything on her tablet as Lily reconstructed the entire first act. The actor doesn't just remember his love for theater, she explained, her eyes bright with fever and inspiration. He discovers a new way of performing, something more true than anything he's done before. And it happens here, in this hospital room. Freeman felt a chill run down his spine. You want to set the play in a hospital? Not just any hospital. This room, this moment. Lily's voice grew stronger with each word. That's why you're here, Mr. Freeman. That's why all of this is happening. The play isn't just a play, it's happening right now, in real life. James Earl Jones, who had been quietly observing, suddenly straightened in his chair. My God, he whispered. She's right. The realization hit everyone at once. The story they'd been rehearsing wasn't just a script, it was a living document of their own journey. Lily hadn't just written a play about an actor rediscovering his purpose. She'd created the circumstances that would actually make it happen. But this changes everything, Sarah protested. The set, the costumes, the blocking. We'd have to restart from scratch and we only have days left. No, Freeman interrupted, understanding flooding his features. We don't need any of that. The hospital is our set. These walls are our backdrop. The truth is already here. We just needed Lily to help us see it. Dr. Bennett, who had been monitoring Lily's vitals throughout this exchange, noticed something remarkable. Her numbers are stabilizing, she said incredulously. Her blood pressure, her heart rate, they're better than they've been in weeks. Lily turned to her father, who had been quietly weeping in the corner. Dad, remember what Mom used to say about stories? How the best ones write themselves? Aiden nodded, unable to speak. This story is writing itself through us, Lily continued. All of us. The doctors, the nurses, Mr. Freeman, Mr. Jones. We're all part of it. We're not putting on a play about remembering what matters. We're living it. The impact of this revelation rippled through the hospital and theater company like a shock wave. Thomas Richardson, connected via video link, immediately began reworking the production plan. The set designers stopped their work, understanding that the sterile hospital walls held more truth than any painted backdrop could provide. Freeman paced the ICU room, his script forgotten as he absorbed the implications of this twist. So instead of performing in the theater, we perform here, Lily finished. In the hospital, with real doctors and nurses as part of the story. The audience moves through the halls, following the actor's journey as he discovers that the most authentic performance of his life isn't on a stage. It's in connecting with people who are facing the ultimate reality. James Earl Jones leaned forward in his chair. Interactive theater, he mused, but with life and death stakes that aren't pretend. Exactly. Lily's excitement was palpable. The audience doesn't just watch. They experience the same journey of discovery that the actor does. They see how a hospital, this place that everyone fears, can become a theater of the most profound human experiences. Dr. Harrison, who had returned to check on the situation, looked skeptical. You want to turn our hospital into a theater? It already is one, Lily insisted. Every day people here face the greatest moments of their lives. Birth, death, healing, loss. What is that if not the ultimate theater? The logistics seemed impossible. How could they transform a working hospital into a performance space? How could they maintain medical protocols while allowing an audience to witness this unique theatrical experience? But as the questions multiplied, so did the solutions. Dr. Bennett suggested using the hospital's off hours for performances. Grace proposed a route through the building that would minimize disruption to patient care. Even the hospital administrators, initially resistant, began to see the powerful potential for healing that this unprecedented fusion of medicine and art could provide. We'll need to rewrite everything, Sarah said, already creating new production schedules on her tablet. No, Freeman corrected. We need to let the story rewrite itself, just as Lily said. Our job isn't to perform a play anymore. It's to facilitate a journey of discovery, for ourselves and for everyone who witnesses it. The next few hours were a flurry of activity. The theater company's technical team began mapping the hospital's spaces, finding ways to use existing lighting and architecture to create theatrical moments. The costume department abandoned their elaborate designs in favor of simple, symbolic pieces that could work within the hospital's sterile environment. But the most remarkable transformation was in Lily herself. As she guided the reconstruction of her play, incorporating the real locations and people of St. Jude, her medical readings continued to improve. It was as if the act of reshaping the story was giving her new strength. "It's like she's feeding off the creative energy," Dr. Bennett remarked to Freeman during a quiet moment. "I've never seen anything like it." Freeman watched as Lily worked with James Earl Jones, showing him how his powerful voice could use the hospital's natural acoustics to create intimate moments of connection with the audience. "She's teaching us all something about the nature of performance," he replied, "about how the most powerful stories aren't the ones we tell, they're the ones we live." The news of the production's transformation spread quickly through the theater community. Other hospitals began calling, wanting to know how they could implement similar programs. Medical journals expressed interest in studying the therapeutic effects of integrating performance art into patient care. But for those involved in the immediate production, the focus remained on the next few crucial days. They had to reshape the entire show while working within Lily's increasingly uncertain medical timeline. "We'll do a test run tomorrow," Freeman announced as the day's work wound down. "Just the first sequence, using the actual hospital spaces. We need to see how this new reality works." Lily, exhausted but exhilarated, had one final instruction before sleeping. "Remember," she said, her voice growing faint, "the hospital isn't just our setting, it's our co-author. Every beep of a monitor, every squeak of a wheel on the floor, every moment of real human connection, it's all part of the story." As night fell over St. Jude, the usual hospital sounds took on new meaning. The rhythm of ventilators became underscore, footsteps in the hall became choreography, and the space itself seemed to pulse with theatrical potential. Freeman sat in the ICU waiting room, rewriting his lines to incorporate this new understanding. James Earl Jones joined him, both men working in comfortable silence as they grappled with the challenge of turning reality into art while preserving its essential truth. "You know what she's done, don't you?" Jones finally said, looking up from his notes. Freeman nodded. "She's shown us that the best performance isn't a performance at all. It's simply being present in moments of truth. She's rewritten more than just the play," Jones continued. "She's rewritten our understanding of what theater can be." As if to underscore their conversation, a code blue announcement echoed through the halls, a stark reminder that in this new theater, the stakes were always real. The morning of the first test run dawned with an electric tension in the air. St. Jude's halls buzzed with a mixture of medical urgency and theatrical anticipation. Freeman arrived early, walking the planned performance route alone, absorbing how different the hospital felt now that he understood it as both a place of healing and a space for storytelling. But the day's carefully laid plans were immediately challenged by reality. Lily had spiked a dangerous fever overnight, and Dr. Bennett was concerned about proceeding. "Her white blood cell count is critically low," the doctor explained to the assembled production team. "Any additional stress could be dangerous." "Then we cancel," Freeman said immediately, but Lily's voice came through weakly from her bed. "No." She struggled to sit up, her face pale but determined. "This is happening today. This is why we changed everything, remember? To show how real life and performance become one. So let's use this, all of it." Dr. Bennett looked uncertain. "Lily, your condition is part of the story," Lily insisted. "The audience needs to understand that everything happening is real. My fever, your concern, Mr. Freeman's fear, it's all part of the truth we're sharing." Freeman moved to her bedside, taking her thin hand in his. "Are you sure about this, Director Patel?" "More sure than I've ever been about anything." She squeezed his hand with surprising strength. "But we need to make one more change. I want to be in it." The room erupted in protests. Dr. Bennett started listing medical risks. Sarah began explaining logistical impossibilities. Even Aiden stepped forward to object. But James Earl Jones, who had been quietly observing, raised his hand for silence. Let her explain. Lily's eyes shone with intensity as she outlined her vision. The actor, Mr. Freeman, is searching for authentic truth in performance, right? What's more authentic than this? She gestured to her hospital room, the medical equipment, her own frail body. I'm not just the playwright anymore. I'm the reason he discovers what he's been missing. Freeman felt a chill of recognition. The student becomes the teacher. Exactly. Lily turned to Dr. Bennett. You can monitor me the whole time. If anything goes wrong, you stop it. But this is what the story needs, what it's always been building toward. The medical team huddled in consultation while the others waited anxiously. Finally, Dr. Bennett returned with a set of strict conditions. Your bed remains stationary. You participate only in scenes that happen in this room. Full monitoring equipment stays in place. The very moment, your vitals show distress, we end it. Lily beamed. Deal. The next few hours were a whirlwind of reorganization. The performance route was rewritten to center around Lily's ICU room. Freeman worked with her to reshape his character's journey, incorporating their real relationship and the genuine evolution of his understanding about performance and truth. The hospital staff, initially concerned about this unorthodox approach, began to see how their regular duties could weave naturally into the narrative. A nurse checking vitals became a moment of quiet reflection on mortality. A doctor reviewing charts transformed into a meditation on how we measure life's value. James Earl Jones took on the role of narrator, his magnificent voice guiding the audience through the hospital's spaces, helping them understand how each location told its own story of human struggle and triumph. In this room, he would intone, standing in the pediatric playroom, children battle monsters no child should have to face, but they also find magic in the midst of their struggles. Watch how they transform an ordinary Tuesday afternoon into a celebration of life. The technical team worked miracles with minimal resources. They discovered that the hospital's architecture itself provided natural theatrical effects, how light streamed through windows at certain hours, how sounds echoed in specific corridors, how the very rhythm of the building's daily operations created its own kind of performance art. But the heart of everything remained in Lily's ICU room. Despite her fever, she directed with remarkable clarity, showing Freeman how to use the medical equipment as props, how to incorporate the constant beeping of monitors into his delivery, how to find profound meaning in simple medical routines. When you take my pulse, she instructed during one scene. It's not just a medical check. It's about two people connecting through touch, about how we measure life in heartbeats and moments. Freeman marveled at her instincts. How do you understand these things at your age? Lily's smile was tired but genuine. Maybe because I don't have time to learn them slowly. The afternoon brought a series of unexpected challenges. A real medical emergency in a nearby room meant quickly rerouting the performance path. Lily's fever spiked again, requiring immediate intervention. The hospital's shift change threatened to disrupt the careful choreography they'd planned, but each obstacle seemed to strengthen the production's core truth. This wasn't a traditional play pretending to be real. It was reality transformed into art while maintaining its authentic heart. During a brief rest period, while Lily received her medications, Freeman sat with Aiden in the ICU waiting room. I've performed Shakespeare for Queens, Freeman said quietly. I've won every award Hollywood has to offer, but I've never been part of anything quite like this. Aiden nodded, his eyes red from exhaustion and emotion. She gets it from her mother. Priya always said art shouldn't just reflect life. It should reveal its meaning. She's teaching us all something profound, Freeman agreed. About performance, about truth, about how to face the ultimate realities with grace. Their conversation was interrupted by Sarah rushing in with urgent news. The hospital board is here. They want to see a preview. The next hour was tense. Board members in business suits followed James Earl Jones through the hospital's transformed spaces. listening as he narrated the intersection of medicine and art, watching as Freeman's character discovered how a hospital could become a theater of human truth. When they reached Lily's room for the crucial scene, she was visibly struggling with pain, but insisted on continuing. The scene they witnessed was unlike anything in traditional theater, a legendary actor taking direction from a dying child, both of them finding new depths of authenticity in their interaction. "Your line about the final curtain call feels false," Lily said during one moment, her voice barely a whisper. "Because in this place we learn there is no final curtain. Every ending becomes someone else's beginning." The board members watched, in stunned silence as Freeman took this direction, reworking the scene until it achieved the raw truth Lily demanded. When it ended, several of them were openly weeping. The hospital's chief administrator stepped forward. "We came here concerned about liability and disruption to hospital operations. But what we've witnessed, this is healing of a different kind." Permission was granted to proceed with public performances, with careful protocols in place to protect patient privacy and medical necessities. But more importantly, the hospital committed to exploring how this fusion of art and medicine might continue beyond this single production. As the day wound down, the entire company gathered in and around Lily's room for notes. Despite her exhaustion, she remained clear about her vision. "Tomorrow we do this for real," she said. "With a real audience. They need to understand that everything they're seeing is true. The medicine, the fear, the hope, all of it. We're not putting on a show. We're sharing what it means to be human, in this place at this moment." Dr. Bennett stepped forward with medical updates. Lily's fever remained dangerous. Her blood counts were still critical. Everyone understood what wasn't being said, that each performance might be the last. But Lily wasn't finished. "One more change," she announced. "At the end, when Mr. Freeman's character finally understands what real performance means." "Yes?" Freeman leaned closer to hear her. "He doesn't just learn from watching, he becomes part of the hospital. Not as an actor, but as a regular visitor, reading to children, sitting with families, being present for real moments instead of performed ones." Freeman felt tears threatening. "You want to write that ending into the script?" Lily's smile was knowing. "It's already happening, isn't it? This place, these people, they're changing you, changing all of us. The script is just catching up to reality." As night fell over St. Jude, the hospital settled into its usual rhythms, but something had shifted. The spaces felt charged with new meaning, as if the day's rehearsals had awakened something that had always been there, waiting to be recognized. Freeman stayed late, walking the performance route one more time. In each space, he now saw beyond the medical equipment and institutional walls to the human stories playing out continuously. Every room contained its own drama of hope and fear, love and loss, courage and surrender. In the ICU, Lily slept fitfully while Aiden maintained his vigil. Dr. Bennett had ordered complete rest before tomorrow's first public performance. But even in sleep, Lily's hands moved as if conducting some invisible performance, as if the story couldn't stop flowing through her. Sarah found Freeman standing in the hospital's main lobby, staring at the space where tomorrow's audiences would begin their journey. "Are you ready?" she asked. "I've never been less ready or more certain in my life," he replied. "Lily's shown us something profound, that the most powerful performance is simply being truthfully present in real moments. And if she can't..." Sarah couldn't finish the sentence. "Then we tell her story exactly as she's taught us to tell it. With complete truth, holding nothing back, letting reality and art become one." The night ahead would be long. The medical team would work to stabilize Lily's condition. The technical crew would make final adjustments to the hospital's spaces. The cast would wrestle with their unprecedented task of performing truth rather than pretending it. But something extraordinary had already been achieved. A dying girl's vision had transformed a hospital into a theater where life's most profound truths could be shared. Her story had reminded a legendary actor about the real purpose of performance. And together, they had created something that transcended traditional boundaries between art and medicine, between performance and reality. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, its own moments of truth. But for now, In the quiet of the hospital night, the story continued to write itself through all of them. The morning of the first public performance arrived with an intensity that seemed to electrify the entire hospital. St. Jude's usual morning. Routines were interwoven with last-minute preparations as the staff prepared to become part of this unprecedented theatrical experience. But at 6 a.m., everything threatened to unravel. Lily's condition had deteriorated significantly overnight. Dr. Bennett found Freeman pacing outside the ICU, his script forgotten in his hands. "She's asking for you," the doctor said quietly. "But I need you to understand she's very weak. The fever's worse, and her body is showing signs of organ stress." Freeman entered the room to find Lily propped up in bed, her face pale, but her eyes still blazing with creative fire. Aidan sat beside her, holding her hand as if he could anchor her to life through sheer will. "We have a problem," Lily said, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't think I can do my scene today." Freeman started to speak, to suggest postponing, but she cut him off with a weak wave. "No canceling. The story needs to be told, but we need to make one final change." She gestured him closer. "Instead of me being in the scene, I want you to tell it. Tell them about the girl who helped you remember what theater really means. Make me part of the story you're sharing." "Lily," Freeman's voice cracked. "Promise me," she insisted. "Promise, you'll tell it true. All of it. How a dying girl taught Morgan Freeman about real performance." Before he could respond, her monitors began beeping urgently. Dr. Bennett rushed in, quickly assessing the situation. "We need to stabilize her," she announced, already adjusting medications. "Everyone out." But Lily grabbed Freeman's hand. "Promise me first." "I promise," he said. Every word true. The next few hours were chaos. The medical team worked to stabilize Lily while the production team struggled with how to adapt. James Earl Jones took charge of rewriting the crucial scene, his deep voice rumbling with emotion as he crafted new narration. "We don't hide what's happening," he insisted. "We incorporate it. The audience needs to understand that this isn't just a performance. It's life and death unfolding before them." Word spread through the hospital about Lily's condition. The staff, who had grown to love the young playwright over the past weeks, moved through their duties with tears in their eyes. But something remarkable began happening. Each person started sharing their own Lily story. "She helped me rewrite the pediatric intake forms," a nurse recalled. "Said they needed more humanity. She directed me in how to deliver bad news," a young doctor added. "Taught me about pacing and tone." These stories became part of the performance, woven into the hospital's spaces like invisible threads of narrative. The building itself seemed to hold her influence, her vision of how medicine and art could merge. By noon, the situation had reached a critical point. Lily was stabilized but extremely weak. The first audience would arrive in 4 hours. Freeman gathered the company in the hospital chapel for a final meeting. "Everything changes today," he began. "What we're about to do isn't in any theater handbook. We're not just telling a story. We're living it right now with a real girl fighting for her life upstairs." He paused, gathering his emotions. "Lily, Patel didn't just write a play about remembering what matters. She created a way for all of us to experience it. Today we honor that by telling the absolute truth about what's happening in this hospital, in this moment." The company dispersed to prepare, each person carrying the weight of this responsibility. The technical team made final adjustments, ensuring each hospital space could serve its dual purpose as both medical facility and performance venue. The costume department distributed simple identifying pieces that would help the audience track the story without disrupting the hospital's sterile requirements. At 3:30 p.m., James Earl Jones gathered the first audience in the hospital lobby. They had been carefully selected: theater professionals, medical educators, arts patrons who might understand and support this new fusion of performance and healing. "What you're about to experience," Jones began, his voice filling the space with authority, "is not a traditional play. You will walk through these halls and witness real medical procedures, real patients fighting real battles. But you will also see how these everyday moments contain profound truths about human existence." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "And you will learn about a 12-year-old playwright named Lily Patel, who taught one of Hollywood's greatest actors that true performance isn't about pretending. It's about being present, in moments of genuine human connection." The audience moved through the hospital's spaces, guided by Jones's narrative and Freeman's journey of discovery. They watched as routine medical procedures became moments of profound theater. They saw how the hospital's rhythms created their own kind of choreography. In the pediatric ward, they witnessed actual children receiving treatment while Freeman's character learned about courage from their unscripted responses to pain. In the rehabilitation unit, they saw genuine moments of triumph as patients took their first steps after surgery. But everything built toward the ICU scene. The audience gathered in the waiting area, while Freeman prepared for the most challenging performance of his career, telling the truth about Lily. Just then, Dr. Bennett emerged from Lily's room with unexpected news. "She's awake," she announced, "and she wants to watch." Through careful arrangement of mirrors and a tablet connection, they created a way for Lily to see Freeman's performance from her bed. The audience would never see her, but she would be able to witness how her story was being told. Freeman took his position. The hospital sounds, beeping monitors, squeaking wheels, distant pages, created their own soundtrack. And then he began. "I came to this hospital thinking I was here to bring something to these children. Some moment of celebrity magic to distract them from their struggles. But in this very room, a 12-year-old girl named Lily Patel taught me what real magic is." His voice caught as he continued. "She's here right now, fighting for her life behind these walls. She wrote a play about an actor who forgot why he loved theater. But what she really wrote was a story about how we all forget what matters until someone helps us remember." The audience was completely still as Freeman shared Lily's journey, how she transformed her hospital room into a theater, how she directed from her bed, how she showed everyone that the most powerful stories are the ones happening right now, in real time. Through the tablet screen, Lily watched, tears streaming down her face. As her vision came to life, this wasn't the performance she'd originally written, but it was the one that needed to happen. Raw, real, and absolutely true. As Freeman reached the climax of his monologue, something extraordinary happened. The hospital's intercom system crackled to life with an emergency code. Instead of stopping the performance, Freeman incorporated it. "You hear that? That's not a sound effect. That's real life and death happening in this building right now. That's what Lily taught us, that every moment here is both mundane and sacred, both ordinary and extraordinary." The audience was crying openly now, understanding that they were witnessing something unprecedented in theater, a complete fusion of art and reality, of performance and truth. In her bed, Lily smiled weakly. Through her tablet, she typed a message to Sarah. He finally got it right. The performance concluded with Freeman leading the audience back to the lobby, but now everything looked different. The ordinary hospital scenes they'd passed earlier had become charged with meaning. Every patient, every staff member, every beeping monitor told a story. Lily Patel wrote that the best performances aren't performances at all, Freeman concluded. They're moments of genuine human connection. She showed me that my greatest role isn't on any movie screen or theater stage. It's right here, being present with people in their moments of truth. As the audience departed, visibly moved by what they'd experienced, word began spreading through the theater community. This wasn't just a new form of performance, it was a revolution in how art could serve healing, how stories could be told, how truth could be shared. But up in the ICU, Lily was fading. The effort of watching the performance had drained her remaining energy. Dr. Bennett ordered immediate intervention. Freeman rushed to her room, still in his performance clothes. He found her smiling despite her obvious distress. "You did it," she whispered. "You told it true." "We did it," he corrected. "You showed us how." Lily's monitors beeped with increasing urgency, but she had one more thing to say. "Remember," she managed, "the story doesn't end here. Promise me you'll keep telling it. Keep showing people what real performance means." "I promise," Freeman said, holding her thin hand. Every hospital, every story, every truth. As the medical team rushed in to begin emergency procedures, Freeman stepped back, watching this brilliant young director face her greatest scene with the same courage she'd shown throughout their extraordinary collaboration. The story wasn't over, but it had reached a moment of profound transformation. In trying to save Lily's play, they had all become part of something larger, a new understanding of how art and life, performance and reality, could become one. The next few hours became a blur of medical urgency and theatrical aftermath. As doctors fought to stabilize Lily, the impact of the performance began rippling through the hospital and beyond. Audience members, still emotional from what they'd witnessed, were calling theater companies and medical institutions across the country, describing this revolutionary fusion of art and healing. James Earl Jones found Freeman in the ICU waiting room, both men physically and emotionally exhausted, but transformed by what they'd been part of. "In 60 years of theater," Jones said, his deep voice gentle, "I've never seen anything quite like this." "Because it wasn't theater," Freeman replied. "Not really. It was something else, something new." Sarah arrived with updates from the theater community. Major hospitals were already reaching out, wanting to know how they could implement similar programs. The Memphis Theater Company's board had voted to establish a permanent partnership with St. Jude, creating a new department dedicated to therapeutic performance art. But none of that mattered as much as the battle being fought behind the ICU doors. Dr. Bennett emerged periodically with updates, her face showing the strain of fighting for her young patient's life. "Her body is extremely weak," she explained during one such update. "But her mind, her spirit, I've never seen anything like it. She's still directing, still creating even now." It was true. Even in her semi-conscious state, Lily continued to shape the story around her. When nurses came to check her vitals, she would whisper suggestions about how to make their movements more meaningful. During brief moments of clarity, she would add new notes to her play, insights about how medical procedures could be transformed into moments of human connection. Aiden hadn't left his daughter's side, maintaining his own vigil as the medical team worked. During a quiet moment, he shared something with Freeman. "Last night, before everything happened, she told me something. She said, 'Dad, don't worry if I can't finish the play. The play is finishing itself through everyone else now.'" The words hit Freeman hard. He realized that Lily had understood something all along that the rest of them were just beginning to grasp, that the true performance wasn't confined to any script or stage, but was happening continuously in the real moments of life and death that filled this hospital. As evening approached, something remarkable began happening throughout St. Jude. Staff members who had been part of the performance started incorporating its lessons into their regular duties. Nurses delivered medications with new awareness of the theatrical potential in everyday gestures. Doctors began paying attention to the narrative elements of their patient interactions. The hospital itself seemed transformed, as if Lily's vision had awakened something that had always been there, waiting to be recognized. Every room now felt like a stage where important human stories were unfolding. Every corridor held the potential for meaningful connection. In the pediatric ward, other young patients who had witnessed parts of the performance began creating their own theatrical moments. A young boy receiving chemotherapy pretended his IV stand was a microphone stand, performing for his nurses. A girl in physical therapy transformed her walking exercises into a dance, with the therapists as her audience. The media had gotten wind of what was happening at St. Jude, but for once, Freeman didn't dodge their questions. Instead, he did something unprecedented. He invited selected journalists to witness the hospital's transformation firsthand, to understand how a 12-year-old playwright had revolutionized the relationship between performance and healing. "This isn't about entertainment," he explained to a reporter from the New York Times. "It's about recognition. Recognition of the dramatic moments that happen in hospitals every day, of the courage it takes to face mortality, of the human connections that make medicine more than just procedures and protocols." As night fell, the hospital's regular rhythms continued, but now they carried new meaning. The squeaking of wheels on polished floors became music. The shadows cast by medical equipment became lighting effects. The quiet conversations in waiting rooms became intimate theater. Dr. Bennett called a meeting of the medical staff to discuss how this new awareness might be incorporated into their standard procedures. "What Lily has shown us," she said, "is that healing isn't just about medicine. It's about recognizing and honoring the human stories that unfold here every day." In Lily's room, the monitors continued their steady rhythm, marking time in beeps and numbers. But now these mechanical sounds seemed to carry their own theatrical weight, becoming part of the ongoing performance of life and death that Lily had helped everyone recognize. Freeman sat beside her bed, holding her hand, understanding that this moment, this simple act of being present with a dying child who had taught him so much, was perhaps the most authentic performance of his career. "You've started something remarkable," he told her. Whether or not, she could hear him. "Something that's going to continue long after this moment. You've shown us all how to see the extraordinary in the ordinary, how to find theater in truth, how to make every moment matter." Outside the window, the Memphis night was alive with stars. Somewhere in the city, audience members from the day's performance were sharing what they'd witnessed, spreading Lily's vision like ripples in a pond. In offices and boardrooms, plans were already being made to expand this new form of therapeutic theater to other hospitals. But here, in this quiet room, the real drama continued. A girl who had set out to write a play about remembering what matters had ended up creating something far more powerful, a new way of seeing, of performing, of healing. The story wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But its impact would be felt long after this night, in hospitals and theaters across the world, wherever people gathered to face life's most profound moments together. 3 months after the groundbreaking performance at St. Jude, Morgan Freeman stood on a different stage, this time at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. Behind him, a large screen showed photographs of a hospital room transformed into a theater, of medical staff becoming performers, and at the center of it all, a smiling 12-year-old girl in a hospital bed. "Lily Patel taught me something that decades in Hollywood couldn't," he began, his voice carrying the weight of experience and emotion. "She showed me that the most powerful performances aren't performances at all. They're moments of genuine, human connection." The audience, consisting of medical professionals, theater directors, and arts administrators from across the country, sat in rapt attention as Freeman described how one girl's vision had sparked a revolution in therapeutic theater. But this wasn't just a speech about the past. It was the official launch of the Lily Patel Foundation for Medical Theater Arts, a new organization dedicated to implementing her innovative approach in hospitals worldwide. "In the 3 months since our first performance at St. Jude," Freeman continued, 17 hospitals have established similar programs. Over 200 medical professionals have been trained in what we now call narrative medicine performance. And countless patients have discovered how sharing their stories through theatrical expression can become part of their healing process. He paused, gathering himself for what came next. "Lily didn't live to see all of this," he said quietly. "She left us 2 weeks after that first performance. But in her final days, she continued directing, continued showing us how to transform medical spaces into stages for human truth." The screen behind him showed new images, hospital corridors where small performances now took place regularly, children in treatment using theatrical techniques to express their experiences, medical staff incorporating dramatic elements into their daily routines. "What began as one girl's play has become something much larger," Freeman explained. "A new understanding of how art and medicine can work together. A recognition that every hospital room contains stories that deserve to be told, moments that deserve to be witnessed, truths that deserve to be shared." In the audience, Dr. Bennett and Nurse Marcus from St. Jude nodded in agreement. They had traveled to Washington to share their firsthand experiences of how Lily's approach had transformed their medical practice. "We see it every day now, Dr. I." Bennett would later tell the assembled medical professionals. Patients who find strength through storytelling, family members who process grief through dramatic expression, staff who discover new ways to connect with those in their care. The changes at St. Jude had been profound. Lily's former room had become a special performance space where patients could share their stories. The hospital's Child Life program now included regular theatrical workshops. Even the medical students rotating through the hospital received training in narrative performance techniques. But perhaps the most significant change was in how the hospital itself was perceived. What had once been seen as simply a medical facility had become a space where art and healing intertwined, where every moment carried theatrical potential. Aiden Patel sat in the front row of the Kennedy Center, listening as Freeman described his daughter's legacy. In the months since Lily's passing, he had become an active part of the foundation's work, helping other parents understand how theatrical expression could help their children face medical challenges. Lily always said that stories have power, he shared during the panel discussion that followed Freeman's speech. She believed that by acknowledging the dramatic moments in our medical journeys, by treating them as performances worthy of attention and respect, we could find new ways to face them. The Foundation's work had already produced remarkable results. Studies showed that patients participating in medical theater programs experienced reduced anxiety, better pain management, and improved emotional processing. Medical staff reported higher job satisfaction and reduced burnout when incorporating theatrical elements into their practice. James Earl Jones, who had become a passionate advocate for the program, took the stage to describe how traditional theater companies were being transformed by their partnerships with hospitals. "We're seeing a new kind of theater emerging," he explained, his magnificent voice filling the hall. "One that doesn't distinguish between performance and reality, between actors and audience, between art and healing." The Foundation's next phase was ambitious. They planned to establish training centers in major medical institutions, develop curriculum for medical schools, and create a network of hospitals committed to integrating theatrical expression into patient care. But beyond the institutional changes, something more profound was happening. The way people thought about hospitals was shifting. These were no longer just places of procedures and protocols. They had become spaces where human stories were acknowledged, honored, and shared. Freeman returned to the podium to share a final memory of Lily. In her last days, when speaking became difficult, she would still direct us with her eyes, her gestures, her presence. She showed us that even in our most vulnerable moments, we are all performing our parts in the great human drama. He pulled out a worn notebook, Lily's original script, now preserved as the Foundation's guiding document. She wrote here that every hospital room is a theater where life's most important moments play out. She understood that by recognizing these moments as worthy of theatrical attention, we give them new meaning, new power, new purpose. The impact of Lily's vision continued to spread. Medical theater programs began appearing in hospitals across the globe. Her approach was being studied in medical schools and drama departments. The barrier between performance and healing had been permanently altered. At St. Jude, where it all began, her influence remained especially strong. The hospital had established an annual festival of medical theater, where patients, staff, and professional actors came together to share stories of healing and hope. Dr. Bennett had started a regular performance rounds program, where medical cases were presented with attention to their narrative and dramatic elements. Nurse Marcus had become certified in therapeutic theater techniques, using performance to help young patients express their fears and hopes. Even the hospital's architecture had been influenced by Lily's vision. When a new wing was added, it included dedicated performance spaces and areas designed to facilitate the integration of theatrical elements into medical care. The Foundation's work also extended beyond hospitals. They began partnering with schools to help children understand illness and medical treatment through theatrical expression. They worked with hospice programs to use performance techniques in end-of-life care. They developed special programs for medical staff to process their own emotional experiences through dramatic presentation. 1 year after Lily's passing, Freeman returned to her room at St. Jude. The space had been preserved but transformed, now serving as both a performance venue and a reminder of where this revolution in medical theater began. The fairy lights still twinkled along the walls. The Shakespeare quotes remained posted where Lily had placed them, but new elements had been added: photographs of performances that had taken place there, testimonials from patients and staff whose lives had been touched by the program, a year, small plaque that read, "The Lily Patel Theater of Human Truth." As he stood in that space, Freeman remembered something Lily had told him during their first meeting. Sometimes you need to forget everything you know about performing to remember why it matters. Those words had become the Foundation's motto, reminding everyone involved that the goal wasn't to create polished performances, but to facilitate genuine human connection. The Foundation's impact continued to grow. Medical journals published studies documenting the therapeutic benefits of theatrical expression in healthcare settings. Theater companies developed new forms of performance specifically designed for medical spaces. Healthcare architects began incorporating performance areas into their hospital designs. But perhaps the most meaningful measure of success came in the small, daily moments. A child finding the courage to face treatment by pretending to be the hero of their own story. Family processing grief through shared dramatic expression. A medical team using theatrical techniques to communicate difficult news with greater empathy and understanding. 5 years after that first revolutionary performance at St. Jude, the Lily Patel Foundation had helped establish medical theater programs in over 500 hospitals worldwide. The approach she pioneered had become a recognized part of integrative medicine, taught in medical schools and theater programs alike. At the 5-year memorial celebration, held simultaneously in hospitals across the globe, Freeman shared a final reflection. Lily Patel wrote a play about remembering what matters, but what she really created was a new way of seeing. Seeing the drama in everyday moments, seeing the theatrical potential in medical spaces, seeing how art and healing could become one. He looked out at the assembled audience, which included medical professionals, theater artists, patients, and families, all connected virtually across continents. She showed us that the greatest performance isn't about pretending, it's about being present in moments of truth. She taught us that every hospital room is a theater, every medical journey a story worth telling, every human connection a moment worthy of witness. The legacy of the 12-year-old playwright who transformed medical care through theatrical vision continued to grow. Her story was taught in medical schools and drama programs. Her methods were studied and adapted for different healthcare settings. Her understanding of how performance could serve healing became part of medical practice around the world. But perhaps her greatest legacy was in how she changed the way people thought about hospitals. These were no longer just places of procedures and protocols. They had become spaces where human stories were honored, where art and medicine worked together, where every moment carried the potential for meaningful performance. In the end, Lily Patel had written more than just a play. She had created a new way of healing, a new form of theater, a new understanding of how art could serve humanity in its most vulnerable moments. And in hospitals around the world, her vision continued to unfold, one genuine performance at a time. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.